The FZ1 is a monster of a bike, and I mean that in a really good way. So stick around on this video, and I'm going to explain exactly why this is a bike that you should consider buying if you're in the market in 2026. So guys, I am the pilot rider, Tiz here. If you're new to this channel, I am a commercial pilot and flight instructor that obviously loves to ride motorcycles as well, create content for you guys. So today's video is about the FZ1 in general. Now I'm going to be speaking about the Gen 2 FZ1, which is what my bike is. That's 2006 to 2015. And why this is a monster of a bike and what makes it such a good bike. So there's three reasons today that I'm going to be talking to you about on why it's such a good bike and why it should be one that you should consider owning if you're in the market for one. So number one is going to be the engine. So the Gen 2 FZ1 specifically has a 150 horsepower engine, 998 cc's, and it's derived from the 2004 to the 2006 R1. Now it has the famous 5-valve head design. So there's 5 valves per cylinder head, 20 valves in total. This is an inline 4. So with most inline 4s, they generate more power on the upper end compared to the low end. And that's pretty typical for this bike as well. So it will generate a lot of power, most of it's high speed rush from 7k onwards. Anything below that, you still got a good decent amount of push and shove, but it's not like comparable to the modern V4s and twins that you get where you get that massive low end shove. So, you know, it really picks up from that point. So if we just do a wee pass here, you'll see it really picks up in terms of speed. And it just goes effortless. Also with that 5-valve per cylinder head design, you have 3 valves for the intake, 2 for the exhaust, and it allows it to breathe more efficiently and also allows it to free rev a lot better as well, or rev more freely. So it goes like stink beyond 7k RPM, and you do have good push and shove from the bottom. It's very manageable power as well from the low end, so you're not going to scare yourself into anything wacky if you accidentally crack the throttle and it's going to wheelie on you or anything like that. Now, in saying that, I do have one less tooth on the front sprocket. So the factory, it comes with 17 tooth front sprocket. I produced it at not to 16 teeth. So essentially you get more acceleration from the lower end, and I think it should have come from factory that way. And it will power wheelie gear 1, gear 2 if you open on it really hard. So in saying that, it's an awesome engine. Really, really great, super fun. There are some issues that you get, and in this year specifically, 2006, maybe to the 2007, I think it may have been updated from that point onwards. It does have a fuel cut, so if I chop the throttle from about 6k RPM and get back on the throttle, it fully cuts the fuel injectors, so when I come back onto the throttle, it gives me a sudden jerk. And it's not nice, I've learned to manage it, but it is noticeable. In the later years of this gen, I think they sorted that issue out. The number 2 point that I'll talk about, the second reason on why the FZ1 is a monster and such a good bike, is because it is the ultimate sleeper bike. So it's a 2006 bike, so it's got 2006 looks, but in saying that, it still looks pretty darn good in my own opinion at the moment. It's a good looking bike. And not only with the looks, it's not a super bike, so it doesn't give the extreme race look. You know, people aren't going to be essentially wanting to drag you from the lights as much, I guess, as you would if you're on, let's say, an R1 or Panigale V4 or something like that, where they see a fast bike and they're like, all right, let's give this guy a go. So you don't quite get that with this bike. It is super comfortable as well. So not only comfort, you've got the power, you've got awesome touring ability on this bike as well. So I've loaded this bike up and done many road trips on this bike, you know, thousands of kilometers, and it performs perfectly. The bum does get a little bit sore after a wee while, and that's just due to these bikes known to have a bit of a harder seat, a bit more of a plank. but you do get used to it the more you do it, or the more you ride, I should say, on it. This bike has 144,000 kilometers as well. So that's a testament for how good, if we go back to point number one, how good the engine is. And also along with number two being a sleeper bike is that power. So like you can surprise a lot of people with how much power this bike does have. You know, it's got plenty of pass. You're never wanting more. If you do want more, you might be racing on the track or something like that. But the top end is awesome. It's plenty for the road. You wouldn't want any more for the road itself. Does the job, comfortable, has the power. It's the ultimate sleeper bike. It's something someone wouldn't suspect would have this much power, but it is nice having a bike that doesn't look racy 24/7. And I've owned an R1 for 2021 R1 and plenty of other bikes, and it's awesome. Don't get me wrong, I loved having those kind of bikes, but just something that's a little bit more manageable every day, such as this FZ1. It is truly a really good sleeper bike. It's not something everyone suspects will go like it does. Number three. So my third reason for this is the analog nature. Being 2006, this one has no ABS, no rider modes, no traction control, none of the electronics that you get at all. Is purely operated by my right wrist and how I operate the bike. Now, as a pilot, I truly appreciate this because, you know, if you compare to a modern airliner, all the modern airlines or passenger airlines, all those big jets have electronics and they're full of them. So everything is almost automated these days. You've got autopilot, which has been around for ages, but there's a lot of safety systems inbuilt into those aircraft. And if you do something wrong, most likely the system will pick it up and therefore stop it. A bit like a bike, you know, all the traction control systems, rider modes, it limits you getting into the danger zone in any particular situation. So that's what the modern jets are like compared to the modern superbikes or the electronics. Now this bike, like I mentioned, has none of that. So it's purely down to my own skill on how I ride this bike and my right hand. So if I be silly with my right hand and I'm not being conscious of where I am or what surface I'm over, it can lead to a not so desirable situation. And so I'm always having to constantly think on how I'm riding this bike. And I do love that as a pilot. As a flight instructor, our small aircraft, you can liken it to a bike like this, like an FZ1 with no electronics. You have to have good stick and rudder skill to fly those aircraft, and essentially for me to teach students effectively in how to fly. And so I liken it, especially the Cessnas, your Pipers, and how to ride an FZ1 or a bike with no electronics. It's all user skill and user input. What you put in is what you get out. Now, don't get me wrong, having electronics, especially on all these modern bikes, is a really, really good thing. You know, it helps get you out of sticky situations. And sometimes there are those situations where you know, it's a freak situation where you're over something, you've just run over something slippery, could be a slick part of the road, whatever, you happen to be applying a little bit of throttle at the time, and the rear fishtails, those electronics, for example, traction control, will help in that aspect to bring that cut power to that tyre, regain traction, and put you back on your way. In this bike, if it's not operated or you don't catch it and you keep applying that throttle, it can end up being a lot worse. So our modern electronics, especially ABS, rider modes, I think are fantastic. And it's not something I'm knocking at all. But in terms of a bike compared to the Gen 2 FZ1, and Gen 1 for that matter, is you really have to pay attention to how you're riding the bike. And that's what I personally do love about it. You know, it really gets you engaged, gets you focused on the road, gets you focused on the bike, what your inputs are, and I believe it makes you a better rider for it. Now, if you're currently in the market for a 1000cc bike or a bike in general, I do highly recommend getting this FZ1. They're awesome bikes. Try to find one in good nick. Now, before I end the video, I just want to touch on one more thing in terms of the price to value that you get with this bike. And I can tie it in with the number 2, the sleeper build, the price, how good it is, and the package that you get for your money. I bought this bike in 2019, so I've owned it for upcoming 7 years for 3,800 New Zealand dollars. Now that is an absolute steal. I don't know exactly off the top of my head how much that would be in US, maybe, 1,900 odd USD. I'll put up the amount just up here above. But that is super good value, what I got. I brought it with higher mileage, but for the package that I actually got, it's absolute killer. Now, if you can find something like that, I don't know the exact prices for anyone watching in the United States, what they go for around where you are, but I would likely presume that they're well priced over there, from what I've seen and what I've read so far anyway, at least. And so if you are in the market for one, definitely go to test ride one, check it out, try it, see what you like about it, see what you don't like about it. For me, it's the longest bike I've owned since riding, and I've been riding for probably coming up to 8-9 years now, probably 9 years. And so, take my word for it, it's an awesome bike. Would highly recommend. And saying all that, thanks heaps for watching. I appreciate you guys. Gonna chuck some more content out there. I'm gonna do a full review on this bike as well. But if you did watch the video and you got something out of it, please consider subscribing. Please like the video. I'm aiming just to get to 100 subscribers. Small amount, but you got to start somewhere. So help me on the road to that, and then we'll aim to get better and better content out for you guys. If you got anything that you want me to cover specifically about this bike or motorcycling in general, what I've found the differences between, or the similarities between flying and motorcycling, feel free to ask away in the comments. So thanks for watching again, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.